Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to be making some Valentine's decor. These really pretty ornaments that I'm making for a Valentine's tree. Super easy, super fun, and so pretty. Enjoy. To make this first ornament, I'm going to be using these square plastic ornaments from Hobby Lobby, BOHS foam clay, this scrapbook paper, a couple of silicone molds in the heart shape and for the embellishment, acrylic paint from Shutter Art and Craft Smart, and some Mod Podge. So I'm going to take the scrapbook paper and actually decoupage a piece of it onto the ornament. So this particular piece of scrapbook paper has the word lovely, and that's what I'm going to cut out for the decoupage. So I'm going to use Mod Podge to decoupage it onto the ornament. First I'm going to put some underneath the paper, and then I'm going to put some on top and just do a nice thin coat both times. One thing I'm going to try in the ornaments I make today is putting a coat of Mod Podge over all of the ornament surface that I don't have something else on. One thing I notice about these plastic ornaments is they're hard to paint on. The paint doesn't like to stick to them. And I've seen some people use some sort of modeling paste, but I don't have any, so I'm trying Mod Podge and see how that works out. So I'm going to use this bit of styrofoam in like a planter to hold up the ornaments while they're drying. Now I'm going to mold the clay. So I'm using cornstarch to line the mold so that the clay doesn't stick to it. You can actually let the clay dry in the mold with this air dry clay, and it will pop right out in a little bit, but I don't want to wait. I just want to get it done. So I use the cornstarch. So I'm going to make some trim to go around the outside of the rectangle, and then I'm going to make some hearts to put on top of the decoupaged scrapbook paper. I made 2 of each piece. So then my paper wasn't as smooth as it probably should be, so I'm going to do a little bit more Mod Podge on it just to smooth it out and then let it dry a little more. So I'm going to use Eileen's tacky glue to glue the clay onto the ornament. First I'm going to trim the trim to the proper size to put it onto the ornament so they match up. Then we'll apply a thin layer of glue around the whole ornament and press the clay into the glue. Now you don't want to press so hard on the decorated part that you lose the detail, but you do want to make sure it's glued on pretty solidly. After I got that stuff glued on, I decided I wanted to add a little trim around the decoupage itself since it's so square. So I'm just going to roll out a thin roll, I guess, and put it all the way around as a border. So I'm using Apple Barrel Black and Craft Smart Silver, and then I'll be using the Shutter Art Pink. And I'm going to do a coat of black first over everything except the decoupage itself, because I want this to have a really antique look. Once that black paint dried, I started to add the silver on the trim. I love the way the silver looks on top of the black paint. It makes it look like it's really old and a little tarnished. So I did a similar thing with the pink paint on top of the rest of the black, which I accidentally forgot to film, to also make that look pretty antique looking. Then I took this Martha Stewart pearl acrylic paint, and I'm gonna dab on pretty much over the whole thing some of the pearl, and it just really gives it a nice sheen and lightens it up a lot so that it doesn't look quite so dark, because I really didn't want it to be dark. I just wanted it to have the dark in the background. So then anywhere that it needed a highlight, I added some of this dabbing pearl paint. So when that coat was dry, I just took a little bit of white acrylic paint and dabbed on a little more highlight. And this is how ornament number 1 turned out. The next ornament is going to be like a pink sugar type of ornament, and I'm using a round ball for this and this pink heart scrapbook paper. I'm just cutting out some hearts, and I'm going to decoupage them onto the round ball, and then I'll make some clay molds for trim. One thing I realized later was I probably should have cut some darts in the pieces of paper so they would fit better onto this round plastic ball, but really I just sort of smushed them on, glued them on, and I'm gonna cover them with a lot of stuff later, paint and glitter and such, so they look okay, but they would have been better with the darts. So I also put Mod Podge over the whole ornament, like I mentioned in the first ornament, to try to give it a little bit better of a place for paint to stick. So I'm trying a much thinner mold to make the decorative trim on this piece. So it was a little harder to get the clay to come out, even with the cornstarch in it. So I left a little bit extra over the top, which I just watched another video of someone using like a palette knife to cut it off at the top, and that might have come out a lot better. But I thought it might be easier to glue it on with a little bit extra overlapping to give it something to bite into when I added it. So I made 4 of these pieces of molding that I'm going to put in between the 4 pieces of decoupage. And I'm using Mod Podge to glue it on this time instead of the tacky glue. So I also wanted to add something onto the bottom part of the ornament, so I picked this heart, and I'm just going to make 4 of these and put them on the bottom. So I started off with a coat of silver paint on the frilly trim pieces and pink paint on the hearts. pink was a little too yellow, so I'm adding just a little bit of purple into it to make it more of a bluish pink. You know, like a baby pink or sugar pink type of pink. And once I painted the hearts, I also painted the whole rest of the ball with the pink. And then I sprinkled it with some glitter, some fine white glitter from Michael's Recollections collection. Once that had all dried, I took some of the pearl white and I'm just dabbing on some highlights in various places. The next highlight I added was a little bit of gold metallic paint. So I thought with the pink and the silver, you'd get sort of a rose pink or rose gold color, but just a little bit to make it look like a faint amount of color. And now we have this super pretty pink sugar ornament. So the third ornament is going to be a red ball using the round plastic ornaments, the foam clay, and some new molds, but a lot of red paint. So I'm going to use a little bit of a thicker piece of trim for this, and then put some of the LOVE and a couple little hearts on one side and just several hearts on the back side. So I'm using the tacky glue again to glue the clay onto this ornament. Once I glued all the clay on, I Mod Podged in between the clay over the whole ornament, just like with the other ornaments. So next I'm going to start painting once the Mod Podge had dried. And I'm just going to do a coat of Shutter Art red on the whole background. Once the red had dried, I'm going to take some of the Martha Stewart Pearl acrylic paint. I started off dabbing, but that was making a mess, so I changed to a brush, and I'm just going to brush some on to all of the clay. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to paint the trim silver. So I do take a brush and I do a coat of silver onto just the trim. Next, I take some red and dab on with the dabber over the whole background. The one coat of red paint is still pretty thin looking and you can kind of see through it, and that's not really the look that I'm looking for. I'm also going to dab a little bit of the red onto the hearts and the letters to give them a little more dimension. Then I'm going to dab on some white highlights. First I'm going to try to add some to the trim because I'm really not loving the way this light colored trim looks. But I'm also going to do a little bit all over the ornament. So once that was done, I took a little bit more red and sort of dabbed over the white that I had just dabbed on. I want a nice sort of dimensional look to it, so I'm doing a number of different colors on top of each other. And I decided that I wanted the trim to be a little darker. I did not like the way it looks with the white or the silver or the pearl. So I'm going to mix a little bit of pearl into red, just enough to give it a little shimmer, and then I'm going to paint it and see what I think about that. And I'm a lot more satisfied with this red trim because now we have a really pretty red and white sparkly ornament. So the last ornaments I want to make are a set of hearts. I'm going to make them glossy red with a little bit of a lace effect to them. And I'm going to use regular air dry clay. So this is the Crayola air dry clay. And I'm just going to use some of my molds to make sort of a heart shape and cut it out and then paint it. So all I did was take what was really a candy mold and press it into the clay. And as I was pressing around it, it made the shape that I wanted. And then I'm just going to cut off all the excess. I tried two different things. I used that clay tool, and then I just used this little palette knifey type tool. Don't forget to put a hole for your hanger if you're going to make some ornaments. I have a lace doily that I believe this one was something my great-grandmother made. And I'm going to use this to make the pattern on 2 of the heart ornaments. So I'm going to be making 3 heart ornaments. For the last ornament, I'm going to use actually one of my silicone molds to press in this swirly shape because I thought it would look really cool. So I let them dry for a day, and then I'm going to paint them with the Folk Art enamel paint in Engine Red. So front and back painted in the glossy red, and then I'm going to detail the lace and the swirly patterns with Martha Stewart's Pearl acrylic paint. I love the way these 3 turned out with the glossy red paint and the pearl accents. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!